the yellow warning sign here from my backup internet connection. Could be that the speed's a bit too high. Let me see. No, I can see it on Vimeo. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. There's always this moment of truth here. Yes,
yeah.
it's on
YouTube. I'm glad you know what you're doing.
This is this mission critical thing. Once you press that button and something goes wrong, there's really not a lot that you can do to undo that. Like once you're on air and you press stop, there's a good chance that the URL gets invalidated and everyone who had that is now not going to be able to watch it. And you think, yes, that's not good.
That's no good. Yeah.
Perfect. We can hear both of us on the stream. Has it been started?
So that was the delay on the stream I was hearing, yeah.
Indeed, yes. Ascania's already here. How exciting. And Yoshi is here as well. Peter is here. Good afternoon, everyone. Guys, we're just settling in. We're just getting ready. And I'm going to mute us now. But if you guys can hear us, we can see you. You can see us, presumably. Let's hope so. Colm and I were just doing a little green room talk. I do like doing that when just before we go on air. But we're going to go grab a coffee now and we'll be quiet and we'll come back on air as soon as the top of the hour. Yoshi can hear me. All right. Good stuff. Hello. Good to see you. Good to see you again. Thank you for stopping by. All right. Colm, radio silence, and we're going to go see each other.
Okay, Jay.
About 20
I'll see
minutes.
you in a bit.
Take care.
Okay. Great stuff.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, and perhaps even good evening. It is wonderful to see you all here. We have about 40 viewers now, which is really, really cool. Thank you so much for dropping by. The DAZ Plus Pro Artist Series. It's wonderful to see you all. It gives me the greatest of pleasures today to introduce you to my first guest I'll have on the show, which is awesome. I'm trying to make this a regular feature because I think there's nothing more valuable than having someone else's workflow being presented and just having literally sitting in as professional artists do their job. And today it's the one and only Mr. Colm Jackson. Whoops, live from Ireland. That is not Colm Jackson. That is something else. This is Colm Jackson, live from Ireland.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here, Jay. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being my very first guest. This is
thank
awesome.
Everybody for coming. You know, we were a bit worried today that no one would show up.
My goodness, yes. Just to give you a bit of background there, we weren't quite clear if the email had gone out because neither Colm nor I have actually received it. And so we checked in, and it looks like there was a little mistake. So only half the people actually got the email that was supposed to get it. I did post it on the forum, so I'm hoping, I'm hoping if you can't watch us live, you can at least watch the recording. I will also, this is another thing, I'm going to make a list on the forum in which we can watch the past DAZ Plus live stream. So there's going to be a pinned post in which you guys can go and check out past live streams. I will also make chapter points. I haven't had a chance to do that yet, so that's coming up. So there we go. Colm, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, I can tell you what I know about you, but please correct me if some of that is incorrect. I remember you were one of the first professional content creators I was aware of, and so it's been a while. I've had you on my kind of in the back of my head for a while. I remember you ran content marketplace at one point, Runtime DNA.
Yeah, Runtime DNA.
Indeed.
Yeah. For 14 years.
Wow, has it been that long?
Yeah, it was 14 years. 2001 to 2016.
Wow, was it that long? Yes,
yeah, it was a long time.
My goodness, back in the day when we had multiple content marketplaces. Yes, I remember.
Yeah. We were the first independent content marketplace,
Mm-hmm.
and community.
Right. You had a massive forum as well. I remember that on Runtime.
Yeah, galleries, the whole works. It
looked elegant. It looked very, very elegant. I remember that about the.
Yeah, we always tried to be a bit edgy, and kind of push the envelope a little bit, But I started in about 98.
With 3D work.
I discovered Bryce. It came a demo of it came free on Computer Arts magazine, and I had it was a 386 or a 486 PC computer at the time, and
the stuff we made images with back then, right? Unbelievable.
It took 2 hours to render a thumbnail, But I got hooked, and then very shortly after that, there was a demo of I think it was Poser 2.
Mm-hmm.
On the cover of Computer Arts, and I got even more hooked then. And by the time Poser 3 came out, there was a bulletin board that had been formed.
Oh yeah.
And online, and there was you had to understand there were absolutely no communities, no online stores. There was no DAZ, there was no Renderosity, there was nothing like that.
We're talking Poser 3, we're talking roughly kind of late 90s, something like that.
Yeah,
Way
99.
Before,
99.
So 5 years before YouTube even existed in a garage in California somewhere.
So there was about 30 of us on this bulletin board who were totally into Poser. And I'd say there was myself and Sid Raven and Traveller, and we started Runtime DNA.
Right.
And the only other person that I know, apart from myself, who is still around from that bulletin board is Katharina Mech4D.
Mech4D, of course, yes. Yeah, that rings a bell.
And so we were all like mates. We were, we were the only people in the world doing this, And there was no clothes even for the figures. And so we used to do things like we would bring Posette into a modeling application like 3D Studio Max or something, and we would pull out a line of vertices around the waist and make a skirt morph. So she would at least have some decency, and things like that, And,
fascinating.
So we'd swap all these techniques, and eventually then DAZ and Renderosity started around about the same time. And I remember being in both those stores as one of the first content creators, and Katharina Mech4D would have been the other. They had some of their own content, which was very minimal,
like the Poser guys that came with Poser.
Yeah, and we would have been the only in the very beginning, the only content creators, and then very rapidly it grew and grew and grew and grew.
Into what we have today. I mean, today this is a whole industry making 3D content. That's no longer like it is a hobby to use for many people, but a lot of people make a living out of making content for these platforms. So it's kind of fascinating to remember that hasn't always been there. We haven't always had things like DAZ Studio or Poser. And I remember I bought Poser when it was at version 7, but it's been on my radar for much longer than that. I've been using DAZ Studio since 2006, I believe, 2006, 2007, something like DAZ Studio 2. That was my version, and I was a little annoyed when 3 came along because, oh my God, the features and all the interface is different. And I'm kind of glad
I never actually got the courage to learn DAZ Studio until 2016. Right. Which is when I joined DAZ as a PA. Runtime DNA folded. The basic reason for that was it just became too much. 14 years, looking like a really professional website and online store and community, which it was, but it was really just a mom and pop business.
I mean, the thing is, if you guys there were 3 of you, right? You, Sid Raven, and the Traveler.
Traveler, yeah. And Eric Van Dyke, yeah.
Right, Eric. And it grew from a website with how many hundreds of users to a website with several thousand users. So
I think the first day we opened up, we got to 100 users. 100 people online.
100 people online.
And then within a matter of a week or so, it was, maybe 1,000 or 2,000 people online at the same time. It grew very, very rapidly.
And unique.
We didn't have any content creators apart from ourselves.
Right.
In the beginning.
So you were doing both. You were doing the content
we were going crazy,
well
trying to make content to fill this hole, And in the end, we realized we needed other content creators. So then we started bringing in, I think maybe at its peak, we maybe had 80 to 100 content creators on our books.
Okay.
And,
that's quite a lot, I have to say. And fielding questions from both content creators as well as the users. How do you get this? I mean, if you're only 3 guys, that's, wow.
We did end up with a lot of satellite workers, testers and people like that, So, of course, we had our own QA department and everything like that, So there was a lot more people working behind the scenes in the end.
Wow.
But it was a lot of work.
It is so nice to talk to you about this, because I seem to remember, like, a couple of people in the chat mentioned this as well. Runtime DNA, yes, of course, it's a brand that many of us remember, of course, who've been using 3D content for a while. So it's unbelievable to put a name to face to that name. It's really good to see. It's really nice. So you've got a Renderosity store as well as a DAZ store today. You're servicing both these marketplaces, and currently you're focusing on making your own custom characters, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I've been making custom characters now. It must be 2 to 3 years. My main thing for years was lighting.
Right, it still is. Promo Studio is still around. I mean, not still.
Render
still
Studio,
around.
yeah.
But isn't that a new one? Isn't that Promo Studio? Isn't that one of yours?
Yeah, that would be the last version. The last version of Render Studio I did was about a year ago. It's called Render Studio HDRI.
Right.
But there's been many iterations. It's actually started, funny enough, as a Vue product.
Oh.
Because the Vue render engine was so much better than the Poser render engine at the time. That it was really nice to bring in your Poser scene imported into Vue, but it was very hard to light. So what I did is I built a lighting rig, a photographic studio lighting rig within Vue with an Infinity Cove backdrop and things like that. I didn't use it as a landscape generator at all. You know,
thinking outside the box. I like it. This is what creative people do.
I didn't even mean it to be a commercial product. And it was when it was finished and I started using it, I thought this is a really good commercial product. So I put it out on Runtime DNA and it did really well. And then I subsequently did the Poser versions. And then when I went to DAZ, I did and very rapidly learned DAZ Studio. And I'm sure in the very first version of Render Studio, if I was to do it again, the DAZ version, I'd most probably do it better because I was a novice when I made that version. But it's still a good version. But I think there's been 3 versions now of Render Studio at DAZ. And of course there was
recognized brand indeed.
And then, of course, there was Terradome, which I made.
Terradome, indeed, yes.
I made that with Traveller, with Eric. And this would, the original idea for that started years and years and years ago, where we always thought, wouldn't it be great to have like a Vue type environment?
Landscapes inside
of Poser, you know, and we played around with the idea for a year or two, and then eventually we decided to do it. And I made all the hardcore morphs and landscape morphs, and Eric designed how it was going to be laid out, the geometries and everything, and he did all the shaders for the landscapes. Right. And I did all the morphs and the lighting with the sky. We had to build a sky dome. There was no sky dome in Poser. And then, of course, you had to have sunlight. So we had to work out how, you know, parenting a light to the dome that looked and you know, that rendered as close as you could to sunlight, you know. So that was how it started.
Robert is saying Terradome is like Bryce for DAZ. I think it's a really cool idea to say, hey, we don't have native landscape generation tools inside neither Poser nor DAZ Studio, and let's just rather than having something that can import whatever height maps and whatnot and height map data, we'll just have a morphable plane that can, you know, you just stick out your own landscapes with morphs. That's an ingenious idea.
Well, it was a set of morphable planes that independently could rotate around each other. So you would have your background mountains in the distance, and then you would have your foreground mountains, and then you would have your base plane in the middle, which would be your real ground plane.
It's just, it's clever to say we're not being hampered by that. If we want to render landscapes in DAZ Studio and it's just not natively integrated, we'll just build something that makes that happen. Did you guys, you had height shaders as well, right? The more you heighten the plane.
I was just going to say that, that it was Eric's idea, actually. And he approached DAZ and he said, how can we make these morphs as they get higher, change the shader so as at the top of the rock you have one material and wrapping around the rock you have a separate material as it morphs. And they helped him build a shader.
Oh, nice.
So it was specifically built for Terradome between DAZ and Traveller.
Terradome 3, that was the DAZ version, right? And then
I think it was you could be right. Yes, it was Terradome 3. Yeah.
And then did you say there was Terradome 2 would have been for Poser?
Terradome 1 and 2 would have been for Poser. Yeah.
So Nomad wants to know: is there a way to convert a Terradome 1 stuff over to Terradome 3? That sounds difficult. Then, if it's like a Poser product.
Apart from it being a Poser product, the geometries are completely different.
Right.
So you wouldn't be able to save an OBJ and load it into the Terradome 3.
Right, gotcha. Okay.
Geometries, and of course the shader system is completely different. You could most probably use the sky maps. That would really be, I would say. Now my memory is very edgy, so I mean I can't even remember what Terradome 1 actually looks like, but
it's been a few years. Yes,
it's been a long time. Yeah. So, but yeah, well, but Terradome 3, I mean, kind of does most things, you know, and there was extra packages that came out afterwards of
Yes, I
more
remember
morphs
additional morphs, different
and
shaders.
skies and different shaders and things like that. Yeah, yeah.
So
And maybe one day we'll get around to doing Terradome 4.
yeah, that'd be nice.
Maybe when DAZ Studio 5 comes out, there may be some amazing technology in there that can actually make us do it a lot different. You know,
I like it. So
Yeah.
outside of 3D content creation, which it sounds like you've been doing a while, you are also, and this is only what I know of you, you're also both a photographer, professional photographer, as well as a musician. So it sounds to me like the total creative package. You're like the creative dynamo.
Well, the photography comes in handy with the 3D content. Most of the sky domes I photograph myself as panoramas, but you know, individual shots and then stitching them together.
So they actually
in
you take those
Photoshop.
pictures. Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
some
Okay.
some of them were rendered in view, so the photography came in very handy. Then, of course, then with Poser there was the IBL lighting,
Right.
where you take a big silver ball and you would photograph the reflection of the silver ball and create IBL lighting. That sort of photography came in very, very handy there. But yeah, I started out as a rock photographer back in the 80s.
That's rock as in bands rather than rocks on the beach type thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, rock music photographer, and I was very lucky. I got to photograph some very famous people like Michael Jackson and Leonard Cohen, and
Look at that.
people like that.
You
Yeah,
met celebrities.
yeah.
This is cool.
Long time ago.
Well, but you know, it's one of those things. So what I think what I recognize in just looking at what you've done and how the amount of creative stuff you've done, it's no surprise to me that you do more than one thing. So we see that often in creatives. You're not just a writer, you're also many other things. Like, you know, if you're creative, you often have multiple things that you do. On musicians, we see, well, you're not just a guitarist, you also play drums and piano and, you know, three
That's
other things.
right,
You go,
yeah.
oh, okay. So yeah, it's
the same for me as a musician. I play guitar, I play bass. You know, I play a little bit of keyboards, and I'm a singer, I'm a songwriter.
right.
You know,
at that.
you know, yeah. So it's just, I think it's just people who are creative, they think with a different part of their brain, and you know.
I think so too. I think for us, all of us creatives, I think it's really important to remember not to try to, what's the right word? To try to indulge in these urges, I'll call them. So when you do feel the need, you want to do something, but it doesn't quite fit in with the rest of the stuff that you've been doing, do it anyway. I think that's something in us that really says, I need to do this. It's important for you to go and develop this. And be that 3D art, be that anything like traditional art, be that something outside of it, like acting, writing. It's really important to give into that. I think for many years of my life, I've not done that. I've said, well, this is an indulgence I don't really have time for. I gotta make money. I gotta focus on my day job. And that then gets you depressed. So the thing is, if you don't...
I've been through all of that myself.
Right.
Yeah. I find that I get guilty that I do so much 3D work that I feel I'm leaving the music behind sometimes, and then I get some inspiration for the music, and the 3D work gets left behind.
Right.
So if you see me disappear off the 3D scene for a month or two, that's what I'm doing. I'm doing music or something.
Music.
You know? Yeah. So
nice.
You know, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, really. You know?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. You've prepared something for us today. We've talked about it. If I remember this correctly, so one of your characters that you've made, we're going to have a look at how you would prepare her in DAZ Studio and then render her out and do a bit of post-production on that. And I think it sounds very basic, but at the same time, this is exactly what I find is really helpful to see from many other perspectives. So everyone uses these things differently together. Everyone has slightly different techniques, and I'd love to see how you do it.
My philosophy, Jay, is that keep it as simple as possible and get the best effect out of it that you can. With being a content creator, you're always looking at the clock because you're thinking, I need to get on with the next project.
Yes, of course.
So you want your project that you're currently doing to look and work and be as appealing as possible, but you can't sit there playing with one light for 4 hours in the day.
Yes, like I do.
Yeah, you can't take up that time. So I like to keep things very, very simple as I can. I do things like I save lighting rigs that I can use later and things like that.
You don't have to set these things up from scratch. You just go one click. I'm 90% there. If there's an adjustment, we can make it, but you don't have to spend 20 minutes rebuilding the rig.
You find you develop a lot of shortcuts. Yeah, so I'm going to just set up a scene and go through setting up the scene, which it's pretty basic going, but it'll just give you an idea on how I set up a scene, and then I won't render it because it'll take too long to render.
Good
but
point.
I've already done a raw render of it. It'll be minutely different because they're never the same.
They're never the same. No.
And then I'm going to bring that into Photoshop and demonstrate how to use Camera Raw in Photoshop, which is basically designed for raw photographic images, to enhance the image and then I'm going to use a Photoshop plugin called Exposure, which is also designed for photography, which allows you to use film effects. So like real film. I don't even
know that one. Exposure.software, is it?
It used to be made by Alien Skin.
Oh, okay.
It's I have the link here. Just 1 second. I'll just tell you exactly what it is. It's exposure.software. That's the one. Yeah.
Exposure.software. Brian's just posted it. Thank you, Brian. Excellent.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think of is, some people who think, no post work and things like that. But I'm a firm believer that as long as you show, if you're a content creator, you show your content as what the purchaser, the user is going to get. That's what you should do. But I think it's also important to show them what they can achieve if they put a little bit of extra work into it as well.
I think, when we shoot with digital cameras, often, nowadays, I suppose, you snap a picture on your iPhone, you put it on social media right away. But if you do something that you put maybe on your portfolio, if you shoot with a real camera, then you don't ever just use whatever comes out and upload that right away. You do a little bit of cropping, you do a little bit of color correction. So there's always that part I wouldn't even say is post work where I'm coming from, because post work, that's more like enhancing the image, like we put a vignette on, do some skin retouching, maybe remove blemishes, add tattoos. That's all kind of post work. But the just mere fact of maybe just equalizing the levels a little bit, and that's not, I wouldn't even class that as post work.
I find the same as digital photography that DAZ renders, let's say iRay renders, not DAZ renders, that they tend to come out like digital photography, quite flat.
Yes, I find that as well.
And they need enhancing, or they don't sing.
They don't sing. That's really good. That's actually really good.
Yeah.
There are things that you can do with the tone mapper, of course, but that applies it directly in the render. So I find it even though it's a nice feature, it's destructive. If you do it afterwards, you can change your mind. So it's just, again, we're talking about time and simplicity. It's just easier if you already have the high res render, and then you change it in post work into 5 different versions rather than having to render the same image 5 times. So that'll be that's the downside of the tone mapper, isn't it?
It is. You can get some really mad effects with the tone mapper as well. I've played around with that a bit, really crazy effects. But anyway, we won't go into that today.
Let's have a look. If you go and share your screen, I think I can go and press a magic button here that will allow us to see it.
I'm sharing screen now.
And then if I do that, I believe, then...
I'm just going to grab a drink of water.
Yeah, sure. There we go. This is looking handsome. And this is live from Colm's computer in... Where are you joining us today from?
I'm in a small town just south of Dublin called Bray. It's a seaside town. It's a beautiful place.
Ooh,
Very,
Grey
very
Island.
lucky.
I like it.
Very lucky to live here. It's right between the mountains and the sea.
Nice.
So,
Oh, one day
yeah.
I'll come visit. Ireland is one of those
Oh,
things.
yeah,
It's
please.
definitely on the bucket list. And seaside towns, I love seaside towns.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I'm 10 minutes from the mountains and 5 minutes from the water.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, so I'm very lucky to live here. Anyway,
Brian said this is a really nice background picture. Tell us more about that. Sometimes it's something really eye-catching. It looks like an actual
right.
canvas
This
drawing.
this is a character called Danu. I've been working on a lot of, which you'll see, because the one that I'm demonstrating with is one of them. A lot of sometimes mythological goddesses. Danu is an Irish goddess, and she's kind of the queen of the fairies.
Oh, okay.
The image you're seeing now is not actually a final DAZ render. I've actually oil painted over it, hand painted in Photoshop.
This is Photoshop.
With oil paint on top, just for my own pleasure. So it's actually a much bigger image. You can see more of a body, but the screen only shows her head and shoulders.
So much, yeah. I think Sean loves it as well. Camilla likes it. Nomad likes it. The thing is, maybe this is another topic for a stream. How do you do an effect like that? How exciting! We'll keep it. We'll put it on the list.
That was just a load of experimentation, making lots of mistakes.
Because this is something I'd look at it and I'm thinking, oh, this would be something I would expect to come out of Painter, Corel Painter. But of course, Photoshop is so powerful, and I'd love to talk more about this, and maybe in another stream. Sounds good. Turn your renders into oil paintings with Photoshop. With Colm Jackson. I love it.
That's if I can remember how to do it, Jay. I've only done it once or twice. Anyway, so I've set up a basic scene here, Genesis 8.1, and I've given her a little bikini there just to hide her privates.
I like it.
I'm going to be using one of my products from DAZ, which is Genesis 8.1, Centaur, and Violane.
Violane, okay, that is
Violane is the name of the character. I didn't do the Centaur. They coupled both of them together, so it has some renders over there.
How does it work when you have don't think I've ever played with the Centaur. Is this available?
I've never played with it myself, to be honest.
Oh, okay, so you gave DAZ the character and they turned it into...
And they put it all together, yeah.
Okay.
So obviously you can use Violane without the Centaur.
Good to know. That's what would be my question. Yeah, so you can use the Centaur version and the human version.
Yes, that's
and
right.
we can see these renders. That's quite nice. So we can already see. We can already see the handwriting, your handwriting in what you do to render. So this is kind of nice.
Yeah, they're quite vibrant. Mm-hmm. Something I noticed a lot about the DAZ's own promos is the vibrancy in them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah.
And I've been trying to achieve that kind of look. I like that, high color look.
Right. Yes. That's a good name for it.
Now, obviously, that render there is pretty much what she looks like out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
So which you want to be able to show those things. So that's Violane. So we're going to. We're going to be using her, and we're going to be using a HDRI image as the lighting from Polyhaven.
Custom one, I like it.
Now, for those who don't know Polyhaven, you can download up to 16K HDRIs. I wouldn't use 16K, I'd stick with the 4K personally.
Same here, yeah.
But one of the beauties of them is you can use them for commercial use. So I'm going to be using one called Misty Pines. I've already downloaded it, but you just search for it, Misty Pines.
There it is, Misty Pines.
There it is, yes.
Yeah, Polyhaven, that used to be called HDRI Haven. And I think
right,
Greg Zahl is actually one of the guys who works on the project. And wonderful.
This is one of his images. And it has a Creative Commons
Creative Commons,
license there,
wonderful.
including commercial.
Nice.
You're
wonderful to have these things. It's just great, isn't it?
What I love about this HDRI, it's actually one of my favorites, is there's no direct light in it. Now, not that there's anything wrong with this, but a lot of HDRIs that we see in the online stores and things, they have bright sunlight. Yes. They have a bright blue sky, the outdoor HDRIs.
Yes, yeah.
And they tend to create harsh shadows, which is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I especially for this project, I wanted a very soft, misty forest look to like almost an early morning look, overcast sky, no harsh light at all. So we'll be using that. So I may as well get started.
Go for it, absolutely.
Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is load in the Violin morph target character, if I can spell it right. There we go. Okay, so just there we go. There.
See, this is one of those tips. You go, hey, you look at your long list of morph dials there. You just search for them, and then that's how you find the person you're looking for, and boom, there you go. Good.
Yeah, and you don't even have to type the whole name most of the time.
Indeed.
So let's load on her. Just as an aside, this version of we've been talking about Poser so much earlier. I keep going to call it Poser. This version of DAZ Studio is the publishing build, and it's the version I use for checking my products before they go to testing, and it has nothing installed in it apart from the Genesis figures, the Genesis 8 figures. So I'll know if something is missing from the product. I'll create in a different version of DAZ Studio, which has all the clothes and everything. But for this evening, I've created a library here a content library called Colm and J, and set that up, and it has everything that I need, so I don't have to go searching for everything.
Nice.
And plus the fact that I've so much installed.
Yes.
That Genesis 8.1 takes 5 minutes to load.
Right.
So we don't want to be going through that. So let's start by loading her material. This will take a second, hopefully. Won't take too long.
David says he's picked up Violin on release, and he says she renders beautifully. Thanks for letting us know.
Fantastic.
I appreciate that.
That's great to know that. Thank you. Just wait for iRay to catch up there.
The inevitable question I need to ask, and let's do it now rather than later. What system are you using? What's your GPU? What's your computer?
It's 5 years old now, but I had a custom built in the UK, and it is I think it's two 8-core i7s.
Dual CPU, loving it.
Yeah. Tight necks.
Really? My
graphics
goodness.
card.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but that's 5 years old now.
And also back in the day when you could still get it. That's nice.
Yeah. 32 gigabyte RAM, and terabytes and terabytes of hard drive space. Lots of hard drive space, lots of external drives, and I made sure they gave me as many USB ports as they could.
As they could, right. The Titan X, I don't remember. Is that an RTX card, or is that the generation beforehand? I can't remember.
Your guess is as good as mine, Jay. I'm not that savvy on these things, but I remember the Titan X was one of the ones that were all the rage for iRay.
Yes, I remember it was coin as well. It was very expensive.
It was well over €1,000. So yeah, it's been a great computer. I have no need whatsoever to upgrade. I don't feel like that it's slow or sluggish in any way. I'm just loading on the eyebrows there.
Yeah, okay.
and the eyelash morph.
I like the manual approach, like loading everything onto the base figure. This is how I work as well. I don't often
Yeah,
dial in the character preset, even though I could. I do tend to start from a base figure and then morph in and shape in whatever I need. And
yeah. I could have just loaded up the character direct, but I thought, to spread it out a little bit, and so that's the base end of everything. So let's just get her some clothes for now. If I can remember which is which. Yes, I'm using the Barbarian Warrior outfit. I think Jay, you might know, or somebody might know who made this. I don't remember. It's from DAZ.
let's check it out. Once Brian posts the link, we're going to find out.
Yeah, I'll load that on anyway. I'm just going to use the dress.
Linde, of course. Linde.
That's it.
Haha.
Linde, yeah. That's how you pronounce it. Linde. I never knew that. So we can now get rid of her underwear.
Good. I like it.
Okay. Now she's still decent.
Kim.
So just before I get going, this will be the raw render from DAZ.
Mm-hmm.
And this will be something like what we're going to try and achieve.
Oh yeah, look at that. Ah, very nice.
So you can see the difference there between the flat render and the one that has so much more dynamics in it. It really pops out at you as opposed to the flat render, So that's what we're going for anyway. So where do we go now? Okay, so let's think about her makeup or whatever, and see where we go with that. She's going to be in a forest, so let's look for something foresty. I'm going to be putting one LIE on it, so I'll put that on last.
Okay.
Let's go with this nice red one here.
Oh yeah, 7 variations. I like it.
Well, that includes the no makeup, I think, as well. Oh no, there is no makeup in this one. She comes direct with makeup.
Oh, okay.
She doesn't have. There was no plain version with this. So lips. Let's go with possibly the red lips. Red paint on the lips, or maybe this one. Yeah, I like that one.
Yes, I like it. It matches the eyeshadow.
Matches the eyeshadow, yeah. And I think in the original render I used green eyes, so we'll go with that. Yeah,
that'll work. Green, grey. I think the blue maybe not, but green. I think I can see it.
We can always change it later.
Good point.
Anyway. So let's see, what do we have left? We've got brows. We have brow colors. I think we just leave it with the default brows. Lips, makeup, nails. We won't use nails. Okay, so we'll load in. It's a very faint kind of dirt on her face, which is just an extra add-on.
That's what you use that for. That's what the LIE is for.
One of the tricks that I learned recently, and I didn't know this only until recently, is that if you load them on twice, it gets darker.
It stacks? So, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, it stacks. Yeah,
does it? Look at that.
Now, of course, LIEs take a short while to load. There we go. I'm going to load that on twice. So let's see.
Look at that. They stack. I never thought about this.
Yeah, so let's stack it one more time and see what it looks like darker. Now, compared to some of my characters, this is actually very light detail. I often put a lot more dirt and blood and scratches and things like that.
Well, your ladies have been through a lot on the battlefield, so yeah.
This is it. You're not going to get a pagan goddess who just came out of the shower, really,
Indeed.
are you, in the middle of a forest? So there we go. We got a bit more kind of.
Yeah. I can see it now. Look at that.
Yeah. So I could have set it up so it was darker, but you can just load it in twice. So okay, so I tend to like a shiny skin. So I give 3 options here for skin shine. Now, one of the things with a lot of HDRIs, especially the ones that don't have direct sunlight, they don't show the skin shine very well. The skin glossiness, the specularity. So we might bump that up once we load in the HDRI.
Be good to see how you do that. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Okay, so I think as far as I'll load in her nail morph. There, she's got longer nails now. Yeah, I'm sure she doesn't sit filing her nails or anything like that.
She either has people for that, or
yeah.
or they don't
maybe.
get long. Possible.
Exactly. Now I've just got to remember what I used from each of these packages, because some of them I only used one or two little things. Okay, from this D-Force Viking outfit from DAZ, I just used the arm bracelet here. So we'll pop that on.
It's one of my favorite parts, actually, accessorizing the character.
It's really important. It's really important,
especially when you show just the upper body of the character and you just see the face, and you think, yeah, that's good, but there's something missing. So this is, what?
Yeah, necklaces, jewelry, armbands, bracelets, anything, nose rings,
yes,
anything like that. One thing I always forget, and I've forgotten it now, is to load in the navel.
Oh, navel, right? Yes.
Yeah, I often
we will
forget
see more
that.
of her. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's the basic character setup. Okay, now she has a spear.
Mm-hmm.
Now this is actually the hardest part of the render I found. I did a lot of work posing the hand and the spear. And so what I've done is I've actually the customized pose. The pose I used was by Ensari, and they're great poses. Someone Wicked poses, and I used this one. I think Someone Wicked pose 7. Yeah. Now I did a customized version of that here, which I'll use in a minute, but that's what it looks like. So I'm going to find the spear.
Subtle adjustments. Those take forever. I totally agree. Posing hands and just making it look just right from the angle that you're shooting on. That is what I spend my time on, really.
Exactly. Now, where is the spear? Is it in the Wild Warrior materials? Wild Warrior outfit? No, it's the Wild Woman outfit. Oh, sorry, Barbarian Warrior poses. Yes, here we go. So we want it in the right hand. There we go. Now,
is it parented? Yes, it's parented. Right?
Yes, it is parented, and there is a right hand pose. I take it the S means spear, so we'll load that in.
Let's find out. Maybe
it hasn't made much of a difference. So I'll load in the pose that I made anyway. I customized. Let's see what that looks like. Now the spear I found was massive. It's huge.
Right.
So what we're going to do is we're going to scale that down.
Do you know, it's so funny. It reminds me of, I'm playing a video game right now, and in the Saturday and Sunday at 10 a.m. on my YouTube channel, that's called Windbound, and the main character looks a little bit like her. She's kind of
really?
Yeah, she's a little, just kind of a stylized art game. Looks beautiful, and the main character looks much like her with a spear on her back, and she's not afraid to, attack things. So
I'm just going to select the hand here and zoom in on that. That spear now, one of the problems with these parented props is, depending on the angle they are in the scene, they lose their rotation and translation. They get mixed up, so you'd automatically go for X translate, which actually isn't too bad.
No, it's good today.
Yeah, it's behaving today. Just get it a little bit more towards the inside of her hand there. Yeah, that'll do. So we'll check all that later. So now the next thing that's missing, I believe, is the hair.
Bit of hair, yes, let's do that.
Yeah, my favorite hair creators would be Lindy. and I don't know how to say this, and I've actually met her. April, is it April YSH or April-ish?
I suppose I call her Aprilish.
I call her Aprilish, yeah. But I don't know whether it's YSH or not. But so
We should get her on the show and ask.
Yeah, I should have asked her when I met her.
Good point.
Okay, so we're using the Yulani hair.
Yulani, beautiful hair, yes.
She makes great hair.
There's so many. There's like hair is difficult. It's difficult to find good hair, like great hair. But I find there's literally this group of like 5 to 10 hair creators who are spectacular, and it's Aprilish and Linde are both in that group. I totally agree.
Yeah, and she makes great barbarian hair as well, and I love barbarians and things like that, so there's not a lot of great barbarian type hair, and she makes quite a bit of it, which is really nice. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, Jay, is I'm going to create a camera.
Let's do it.
And just for now, I'll just copy the perspective view and just go to the camera. Now let's pull her into the scene a little bit. I'm just going to click out of iRay for a little while, just while I'm maneuvering things around. Starting to get a bit sluggish.
It is, you're brave. I mean, I could see that with the right mindset and the right level of patience, you can actually work quite a while in iRay if you don't expect things to change too fast. Like if you
then all of a sudden it starts slowing down. Staggering and
with things like hair, and then especially when it comes to posing. Yeah, I totally agree. A different viewport, drawing mode.
I'll leave the headlamp on just for a second while I'm working. If I turn the headlamp off, will we still see her? No,
there you go.
I have to leave the headlamp on for now.
What I do this in the render settings. There's a way that says never. I tend to leave that on in my default scene, so it doesn't ever bother me. But it's something that trips up newcomers time and time again. So yeah.
Sometimes I find I need the headlamp, and also sometimes I use the headlamp in renders because you can change the intensity of the headlamp.
True.
So it can actually work as a really nice fill light.
Good point. Yes, if you do it really subtly, if you just need that
you have to be very subtle, or it looks like a camera flash.
Yes,
if you don't do it
like the reporter, the roving reporter at the scene.
I'm going to bring up the focal length to around about 100, and then zoom out a bit. That's roughly where we need her. So it's going to pop back into iRay, and then I'm going to load in the HDRI. So this is the Misty Pines HDRI.
David makes a good comment. Control L to preview lights, just in case you find yourself in a completely dark scene. And
is that right? I see. Right.
It's the same as
Control L.
Control L. It's the same as going over to window. I think it's in the window menu. And then just activating preview lights. It almost does the same, but it only works in texture shaded view. It doesn't work in filament.
Right. I never use filament. I can't seem to get a handle on it.
Once you watch my video about it, you'll totally get a hang on. You're going to love it.
Okay.
You're going to love it.
Great. Okay, so now we can turn the headlamp off.
Righty, we have illumination.
Yeah. Okay. So,
but even then, like when you had the headlamp on, and if you had turned down the intensity, I can totally see how that would just minimize a little bit of the dark rings. Like the default might be too strong, but you blend it in. If it's all about subtlety, I can totally see.
That's 0.
This is like having the fill-in flash on your digital camera, really, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a tiny bit of it there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah, exactly.
That's a point 2, and it looks very natural. Now you do get the headlamp reflection in the eyes,
yes.
which can be handy, but we're going to leave it off for now anyway. So now we want to get. Let's have a look at the setup there.
Oh, Nomad
I'm
says
just, I'm,
there is apparently a script. We were just discussing in the chat. Is wouldn't it be nice if DAZ Studio would have an autosave script? Because we're getting to this point. You've done a lot of setup, but you haven't saved your scene yet. It's basically like I do. I work as well. I just
yeah,
forget to save, and it's my trademark. But
me too. Yeah.
excellent.
Luckily, I don't have too many crashes, so I'm just thinking. I think the dome rotation was around about 18. I actually ran through this today. That's how I can remember these things. Yeah, that's pretty close. So that the tree here on the left is what I'm looking at, which is in the original image.
Yes, just a little bit in there.
That's pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty close. So actually, I say rotating the environment. I'm just going to rotate Genesis 8 female a little bit there. She does appear to be why rotated. That must be something to do with the pose.
Oh, it could be the pose. Yes. Yeah, that might make it.
I want her looking directly at the camera. Kind of like, she's been running through the forest all day and she come across me with my ancient pagan camera, my Vicon or something. And she's posed for a photograph. So we said earlier we're going to bump up the specularity on her.
Oh, yes.
So we're going to go to surfaces and select all the relevant parts: arms, body, ears, face, head, legs. Actually, before I do this, I'm going to load in, there's some built-in specularity for the lips. Sorry, not built-in, comes with the product herself. I'm going to give her lots of...
I'll give the lips some gloss. Gotcha.
Yeah. Because I'm not going to change that now. So, okay, so we got the lips there. So we got the arms, body, ears, face, head, legs. We don't want the lips. That's everything, I think. So we want low specularity.
I think I have a magic button that lets me zoom into that
the
part.
Weight there. Try it at 100%. That's a little bit too much, maybe. Bring it down to about 85. I want her to look like she's been running through the forest, chasing an enemy or chasing a wild boar or something like that. Now, something else needs changing is her hair. Her hair isn't right. I need to change the hair color for a start. And Aprilish always comes with lots of colors. And the one I'd like to use is the brown blonde.
Just a second. Looks like some people are losing the stream, which is one of those Vimeo things again. That is not so good. Tell you what, Julia, could you dig out the backup link? So we have, I decided, because we had so many problems last time with Vimeo, that I decided to stream this to Vimeo as well as YouTube in parallel. Now, the thing is, the chat isn't linked on YouTube. It's an unlisted YouTube link. If you give out exactly, thank you so much, Nate. This is a YouTube link that will let you watch the same stream, hopefully with more stability. But when you chat, we won't be able to see your chat messages. So if you want to chat, type in the Vimeo window, but you can watch it on YouTube. I kind of had hoped we're not going to have to use it, but it looks like for a lot of people, we're having problems there. So there we go.
Okay. Shall I just continue?
Yes, please continue.
Jack?
That's cool, yeah.
So, sorry, I'm chewing a not smoking pill.
It's better than smoking. I thought, in the 80s, where everyone used to smoke, 70s and 80s, everyone used to smoke on TV.
Exactly. If I ever felt like smoking, I feel like smoking now.
I'll ask DAZ if we're allowed to do this on the next stream.
Oh, no, don't. Okay, I'm just going to change your hair to the brown blonde. Okay, that's much better. And while I'm in here, actually, I'm just going to up the resolution because I don't understand this, but a lot of hairs come as base resolution. Maybe that means you're not supposed to up the resolution. I don't know, but I always do.
I mean, I would say that's a good point, actually. I think if the subdivision surface modifier is already applied, but the product loads in with base res, I would imagine the clothing creator thought it works with
it works as is. Yeah.
If it's not applied, then it might be something that they might have done that for a reason. So then it's basically at your own risk to add one by yourself.
I would normally change the hair subdivision render subdivision level to 3 or possibly even 4 if it is a low res hair. I mean, some of them, the fine hairs and that they can be a little bit kind of totally. Now let's check what render resolution she's at. Now I would normally render her a 4. We're not going to be rendering, but this is how I would set it up.
It's interesting actually, that you have the base character that you loaded in, and when you then applied the bits and pieces, she had a sub-D level of 1, which you said this is an 8.1 figure. This is good to know because I would love it if 8.1 figures would have a viewport sub-D level of 1 applied and a render level of something much higher by default, because I don't think there's much benefit in having sub-D level of 2 in the viewport. It just makes most computers so much more sluggish, and especially if you have that on the clothing and the hair, and you think all of a sudden the jump from 8 to 8.1 makes it appear as if my computer is no longer capable, but it's just because of the default sub-D level.
Good point, yeah. And another thing I'd just like to point out, the way I do things is, I don't know what this is actually set to at the moment. So this is the default DAZ promo resolution for the render. I think the original render of this was 3000 by 3900.
Wow. Okay.
Obviously, it takes longer to render, but the quality is so much better when you render. At least try to render twice as big as what you need. Yeah. The quality is much, much better. And also, iRay has a tendency to render artifacts, especially in dark backgrounds or shadows, or in hair as well. You get that noise. If you render larger, and then when you bring it down to the 1000 by 1300 DAZ render size, most of that disappears. Right.
So just by up-resing the image, by making a larger render, you avoid those kind of artifacts.
Exactly.
Also, I mean, I've noticed that that making the picture twice as big doesn't actually mean it takes 4 times as long to render, even though that's technically what happens really. But we're making a picture that isn't twice the size, we're making it 4 times as big. So, but
I wish I understood what sometimes you make a scene and it renders incredibly fast, even if it's really large, can render in 5 or 10 minutes, and you think, wow, that's really fast. And then you can make a similar scene another day that takes 2 hours to render. I've never gotten my head around that,
Same here.
Puzzlement. Yeah. So I think there's just one more thing really to do on this, and I adjusted the hair style a little bit. Now I have written down made a note of what I actually did on this, because it would be too hard to try to recreate. So we have it comes with loads of morphs. And she also has loads of styles. She always gives all these great styles.
As I really appreciate that about her products. When I look at these things as a fan, all I see is the amount of work that goes into that. I mean, you have to not only make the thumbnails, you have to make the morph, you got to make sure it works, you got to test it, and my goodness, there's just so much.
There's a lot of work.
It's just time that goes into this. So
the trick is finding shortcuts along the way. I mean, I have loads of actions made in Photoshop for doing the thumbnails. So I don't know whether I have it in this version. No, I don't. But I have Man Friday's render queue in my other DAZ Studio, and I'll set up all the thumbnails to render and leave them rendering, and then I'll bring them into Photoshop, run an action, and I render them at 256 by 256, which is the .tip.png size for DAZ. And then I've got an action that will just put them all in another folder as 91 by 91. And then I use a program called Total Commander, which is a file navigation product, and that has a great function where you can multi-rename things. So you can, where it's made the 90 by 91 PNGs, but you can then tell it to change the .png to .duff.png on all of them all at the same time, or .tip.png on the 256s, which saves so much time. I mean, imagine doing all them manually.
Yes.
If you've got 58 or 100, thumbnails that take for. In fact, when I first started doing this, that's what I used to do, and it's only over time I actually developed lots of different shortcuts for doing things.
Nice.
So let's just okay. So there's 3 morphs on this. One is called left. I'm just going to search for it, and that was set at 0.38. Okay. The next one was called length, and that was set at -0.5.
This is sometimes part of the fun, to play around with all these sliders and see when your perfect hair shape comes out.
I don't want to be wasting loads of time
playing
around with them now,
This is awesome to just go and say, hey, I know this one works, I'll just go through this.
From right. Why is that not showing up? Okay. Right.
The right is better, yeah.
From right side to side, I'm looking for.
From right bend, from
back,
right length.
Oh, front right.
Front, not from. Good point. Our eyes are getting worse.
That's why I couldn't get it. And that's set at -34.36.
Camilla just said, Camilla is a professional render artist for DAZ. I appreciate you dropping by. It's always nice to speak to you. And she said, she said that the testing team at DAZ, they not only do they test all these sliders that go into a product, they also categorize them so that they end up on the correct label in the correct little folder. So it's a lot of work that's involved there, not just from creating it, but also from checking it's in the right spot. So rather than it being in something like Morph's ZBrush or something, that's not what we wanted. We wanted in a properly named folder.
Yeah. Well, I'm good. That's really good to know. But thankfully, I've learned not to do that, and I do it all myself before they get it. So I've come to. I'm very lucky. I've come to a point now with DAZ, with testing, that now and again there might be something that I forgot or something I didn't do the right way or something. But usually they come back as good to go. So I must be putting them in the right place.
You must be. Then, of course, there's smart content. Smart content is another thing. You don't set that up as a content creator.
No, I don't use. I haven't got a clue how to use smart content.
You got to watch my video about this.
Yeah. I saw you use it a couple of weeks ago, and you asked me. You were using one of my textures.
Yes, I remember on the last stream. Yes, I remember last plus stream.
I can't remember her name.
It was Sienna.
Sienna, yeah. And you asked me where the file was to load the full mat, the full material. And you were in the smart content tab, and I hadn't a clue where it was.
You haven't set it up. So the way I think it works is, as a creator, you set it up in the regular content library, and then once DAZ get it, they categorize it for the smart content. So there's a team of people that work in creating that.
Yeah. I wouldn't have a clue how to do that. So I think the last thing we have to do is a bit of depth of field.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, let's do depth of field.
So we're going to select the camera, and we're going to go to perspective view. And we're going to just turn around a little bit and zoom in. We want to set up the focal length so it's right in focus on our eyes. Unless you're doing some sort of arty render where you'd be in focus on the hand with the out of focus figure in the background, you kind of really need to, I believe, set it up from the eyes.
I totally agree, yeah. I do that, and it makes such a difference. Even if it's super subtle, go for depth of field.
Yeah,
Literally
yeah.
every shot should have it, especially also HDRIs, where the background might be just as in focus as the camera. In real life, it wouldn't be like that, really. It would
And
be,
it can look too busy as well.
Yes,
you know?
Exactly. So this is one of the things that's really nice, is that it'll separate the character from the background, and by making the viewer see this is in focus, this is, even if it's subtle, this is out of focus, the eye knows important here, not so important here. Makes part of the composition, but where does the eye wander first? It has to be what you want to emphasize, and that's got to be the character.
With a figure, I think the eye, the viewer's eye goes to the eyes first of all. You know,
Yeah.
Definitely to the face. Anyway, we'll switch depth of field on, and I'm sure most people know how to do this, but in case there's somebody or some who don't, you get this bounding box around the figure, and you can't see it at the moment. I'll pull it out so as you can. There's a green marker, green and red marker. If you see where my mouse is, it's just here.
Oh, yeah,
green,
thin,
red,
yes,
and
yes.
blue, actually. So that's what we're attempting to line up. Oh, sorry, the wrong one. Line up with the eyes. Now, obviously, it's very difficult to know if it's lined up with the eyes exactly, but I would say that's pretty close. We're not going to be using a terrible, a very heavy amount of depth of field there. That's about right. But when we switch back to the camera view, it'll actually be too much depth of field. Yes.
There we go.
So
That's that effect. Yeah.
we're at f22 at the moment. So let's try 44 double F. It's better.
It's getting there.
66. That's nice.
That's nice. 64 to
Yeah.
be super accurate.
Okay, 64.
It doesn't matter, really. It's all
There we
faked
go.
in 3D anyway, so it doesn't really
Yeah, there we go. I wonder how exact it actually is. That would be interesting to know. So let's just position her a little bit more. So that would be the final. I haven't even saved this.
Camilla says if you go into display focal point scale, you can make the red line a little bit bigger if we ever needed to do that. Oh, that's
if you
nice.
go where? Sorry?
Yeah, she reckons display focal point scale.
Display.
Display
Here?
Display focal point scale. There we go. It says it's 100%. Let's crank that up a bit and see what happens.
Where's that, Jack?
This one, just where your cursor is right now. Focal point scale.
Oh, focal point scale, right.
That is interesting.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
look at
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, because the problem is it can be too short.
Yeah, and it's also sometimes it's not in the right place. If the eyes are here, the little line is there.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Never knew that.
Yes.
I wonder if you can take the limits off and make it
Yes.
even bigger.
Do you know this would then? This would be great. Exactly, make it like 2000% or so.
I don't think it's going bigger. No. It must be locked internally or something.
Do you know, Unreal Engine has this concept with the plane. So rather than just a line, they draw a whole plane, and you can see that from any angle, and you can literally just focus that.
Yeah, even if it was a transparent plane or something, that would be really handy.
Ooh, thank you, Camilla.
Maybe a content creator could make a transparent plane that hooks up to it somehow. Okay, so that's pretty much her finished. So we're not going to render her. Let's see how close she is to the original
Yes, let's have a look.
scene.
That is very close.
Oh, it's very close. The trees are slightly positioned differently, but it's pretty close.
Move the image off to the side so we can see it side by side.
Oh, sorry. Which way would you like?
This one here, the photo that you've got in the front. Just move that to the right.
I see.
Like that, that's perfect. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
Okay, yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
There is one thing I spotted, and it's also on the original render, so we'll have to make do with that when we go into post work. But the dress is slightly too big around the hips.
Oh, yes, I see it now. Yes.
Yeah. So what have we got in adjustments?
Is it D-Force?
No, it's not.
No, okay.
No, it's not D-Force. I checked that out earlier, actually. Expand bottom, I suppose, minus expand bottom.
Trevor, also a very good tip. Thank you, Trevor. Absolutely. This is how I line it up as well. Usually to see where the focal point is on the eyes, I just look from the top of the image, and then I can see where that focal point is literally when you look at the top of the character. That's how Trevor does it. Good tip, Trevor. Thanks.
Wow, waist expand, that would be the one, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Come on, waist.
Yeah. I think expand bottom means her actual bottom. Okay, that looks better. A little bit more. Yeah, that fits better. Yeah. So that would be the final render.
I like it.
So,
and in a real life situation, when you had a vision for her and you wanted to make her from scratch, I would imagine you, like for the hair as an example, you would try out different variations of, when is the hair perfect, and fiddle with this slider, fiddle with that slider until you're happy. Is that how you work?
Well, what is I find with almost every character that I make is I go through all the hairs that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing which ones work the best with her, which ones suit her, basically, and suit the image that I'm trying to portray for the character, and then you basically play around with the dials. I mean, with Aprilish, it can be often very straightforward. We'll just click on one of the presets. And you'll use that. So we're ready to go into the post work.
Okay.
Now, if that's okay, Jay.
I'm good with that. Yes. If you have any questions for this part of the session, then please ask ahead. It's kind of we can always come back to it. You're not going to close it, right? You're just going to put it in the background.
No, I'm just going to turn off iRay while I'm using Photoshop.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Okay. So let's load up Photoshop. Now we have the final render here. Yeah, that's the final one. Yeah. Okie dokie. So we just drag that into Photoshop. Now this is really going to be a trial and error process. Seeing what we can do. Some of the things will be very simple.
Mm-hmm.
Some will be trial and error. Does this look good? No. Does that look better? Now, so I don't know whether a lot of people who make renders or content creators on their images, there's a plugin made for raw photographs in Photoshop called Camera Raw filter, and it's very, very powerful. So we're going to load her into that. So she's now in Camera Raw. And this does everything. Gives us a histogram and everything. And this is your basic panel here, which you can set all your normal things like your color, temperature, your exposure. Now with a raw photographic image, you can actually change the exposure of the like the camera exposure. So say you took a photograph that was underexposed or overexposed, you can really compensate it with a raw digital photograph by using this software. You can get it to where it should be. That's what this is actually designed for. It's designed for raw digital photographs.
Not so much for PNGs, but for the stuff that comes out of the digital camera or from a scanner, with like a raw file that you can't really look at. You have to put it through Photoshop and then turn it into a developed JPEG or developed PNG, right?
Exactly. I would be a Nikon camera user, so my raw files would be. I think they're RAW. I think that may be what they're called. So you have the basic, all the basic stuff here. There's some very interesting stuff which I will get into in a minute here, and you have you can change the curves of the highlights and shadows and the darks and the lights.
See, I never knew this. You could actually use it on a regular PNG image from stuff that you already have. That's very interesting.
Yeah. And maybe there's a lot of people who don't realize who use Photoshop.
How did you get there again? Before
how did I get to camera raw?
Yes.
Filter.
A filter.
Camera raw filter.
Dang,
right,
brother.
It's right at the top. It's about third or fourth one down.
It's a filter. They're hiding things in the filter menu. Crazy stuff. Thank you. That's actually surprising. I didn't know. I knew that when you open one, when you have a raw image and you open that in Photoshop or with Photoshop, then this menu comes up. I didn't know you could get there. How exciting. Yeah.
So you can do all sorts of things with this. You can obviously, you're sharpening, noise reduction. I'll go into the noise reduction later. That's very, very useful for DAZ renders. Color mixer, you got your hue, saturation. You can change the luminance of the hue, which is really nice.
Before you even start putting layers on it and maybe doing color balance as a layer, how exciting! This is dynamite stuff, Colm. I had no idea.
Yeah, you can change the optics, whatever that is. I think it's to do with wide angle. If it was too wide or something like that, you can change that. So if you were shooting with a wide angle lens on a camera, or your perspective was too wide in DAZ, you can help compensate for it with this.
That's so clever. There's actually a special filter in Photoshop that lets you do this with cameras that they've kind of calculated, I guess. So you could pick the exact camera.
I think you can actually do this in here.
Is it?
Maybe no. There is a way. Geometry, I don't know what that does. I've never used it. Basic effects like grain, film grain.
And vignette too, unvignette as well. That's cool. You can reverse vignette if you had a vignette that you want to get rid of.
Yeah.
Nice.
So these are all the basic things, but this is only the basic part of it. And you can calibrate it to your camera, I think. So, we don't need to do that. But so getting into the nuts and bolts of what we're going to do, the first thing I usually do is I go to simple route, press the auto button.
That is simple.
Yeah. So press the auto button. Does that look better or does that look better? I think it looks better with the auto. But we're not going to use the auto. I'll tell you why we're not going to use the auto is because I want to show people what the dials do.
Yes, let's do that. Let's have a look at the dials. I like it.
Now, the first thing I would do, I would change the color temperature slightly. I think it's too warm for a misty forest early in the morning. It should be a bit more blue, I would say, the light. I would enhance the blacks in the image, give it a little bit more punch.
This is the equivalent of doing crush blacks in the tone mapper, if you're familiar with that. That's what that does. It basically takes the knee and just makes it a bit harder on the bottom.
But again, this is non-destructive, where the tone mapper is destructive.
Is destructive, yes.
Yeah. Now, bear in mind, this is only the basic setup that we're using at the moment. We're going to go into more detail with this plugin. There's a lot more it can do than all of this. So I'm going to bring down the highlights a bit just to bring out that background. You see, You see that background is starting to show a little bit more,
So
the trees in the distance.
When you had it on zero, it's almost like the HDRI was a little bit on the blown out side, as if it's lost some details.
Exactly.
And the moment you
exactly.
bring that back, you can literally see trees reappearing in the distance there. So it's like bringing
But it's
detail
almost
back
like
that was almost gone.
It's almost like a raw camera image where the detail is actually still there, and that's what you would do with this plugin. But it seems like there's still a lot of detail in the PNG image. Now, I'm just going to bump up the vibrance a little bit now. That this is going to make her a little bit more yellow. So let's have a look at just bring that temperature
Vibrance
down a bit
instead of saturation. Say something more about that. What's the difference between the two?
I think it takes the individual hues and colors, and it enhances them as a part from the overall image. So if I take that off, see, that's enhancing the color of the whole image. Whereas if I use the vibrance, it's only enhancing the color of the image.
It's different colors, actually. I think saturation just increases the whole spectrum. It just makes everything more saturated.
Exactly.
Whereas vibrance favors the blues and the greens and not the skin tone so much. So with increased saturation, you get this ugly skin look that just looks ill, like the early 90s digital camera type style. They use that. And vibrance is this magic where the sky comes out and the water comes out, but the skin still looks very healthy.
Now, clarity here is a good one.
What does that do?
Clarity, that gives it a lot of oomph. So I'll just max it out and then bring it back down. And I would give it something like that. It just gives it that little bit more punch. Now, we lose a little bit of shadow detail with that, but I'll bring that in later. So the clarity. There's the clarity off.
Yes.
There it is at about 34 plus 34. So the next thing I want to do is show you this texture slider. This is one of my favorites, actually. So we zoom into the face. Can you see that okay?
Wow. Yeah, absolutely.
So
the detail. Wow. Yes. I forgot we actually made a 3000 by 3900 render. So it's kind of now seeing it zoomed in. I'm thinking, whoa, the detail. I wasn't aware we had it. So
there actually is something I've forgotten to put into the original, into the render I've just set up for you. And that is I used a specular light for the eyes. But what we can do is she has some specularity in her eyes already. And I'll just enhance that later in post-work. But this texture slider really brings out the detail. Can you see that? If I take it down all the way, that's soft.
It's almost like...
I know what you're going to say, yeah.
Image sharpening, but a better version of it somehow. I don't know how it works.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm going to put it at about plus 35, I think. So without it's very subtle, but it makes a huge difference, I think.
Like if you think about...
look down at the rest of the image there, the detail
that's a good idea.
Actually
on the linen there.
I can swap between the original. There's the original. And there's the so far enhanced version. So we go down to, there's the enhanced version. There's the original. This is just with the basic sliders.
Okay, that's quite amazing, huh? Yoshi, absolutely. Yeah. I think so too.
Yeah, it really makes a huge difference. So that's basically all we're going to do for the basic camera raw setup. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to OK out of that, and it's going to change the original layer into this. Usually I would duplicate the layer and
retain the original.
But I've got a copy of it anyway, so I can always bring it in if everything went awry. So we're just going to, there we go. So now I'm going to duplicate that layer. Okay, so I'm going to work on a copy of the layer now. I'm going to go back into Camera Raw. And we're going to get into the kind of nuts and bolts of it now. There's so many tools in here. You have spot removal tool. these brushes, the adjustment brush is amazing. That's the first thing I'm going to use in a second. You have a gradient filter where you can put a gradient across it, so you could darken one side of the image if you wanted, or something like that, or the top or the bottom.
My God, that's like to me, this is like discovering plutonium. I didn't know this was there. How interesting.
I'll use quite a few of these tools. The radial filter is really powerful as well, where you basically let me just reset that. You can draw out a radius like this, and say I wanted to darken just that area.
Clever.
Right? Or I could bring out more detail in it or something.
Right. That's radial, amazing, just to put that on the face and just work on the face, for example.
I could do that and just bring out that little bit of the dark detail of the foliage, stuff like that.
This is, Colm, this is why we all need to come together on this level, because we all know many of these little tips, and we always assume, well, everyone knows that. No, we don't. This is very important to share this. I really appreciate us all taking so much time on these details, because this is what makes and breaks an image.
Well, I learned this through photography. It was all the tech. I did a photography course. Can't remember the names. A French guy, and he's got a big YouTube channel, and I paid for one of his courses, and it just taught me how to use camera raw the way the professionals do, and it was invaluable. It was money well spent, So what I'd like to do first of all, I'm going to zoom in. Now, this image is not actually that noisy, and I don't know whether the resolution will actually show on people's monitors, but there's a little bit of noise going on in the hair.
A tiny bit. I think we can see it. Hair's a good example. There's a tiny, nothing we would say is wrong, but there's a tiny bit. I can see it, yeah.
And especially when the image is shrunk down to 1,000 by 1,300, it won't show. But if you were to print this image out at this size, it would show. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the adjustment brush tool, and we're going to add some selective noise reduction. So I'm going to bring up the noise reduction just for now to +50, and then I'm just going to brush over the hair a little bit there, just smooth it out a little bit.
Subtlety is the word.
Subtlety is the word, because you have to. With being a musician, it's like mixing music. When you mix music, subtlety is also the word. All those little changes that you make all add up into one big dynamic change. Now, if I don't know whether you'll see it, but if I bump that noise reduction up to 100%, it's too much. But you can see that
we get this little smeary effect in the hair now.
Yeah. So
we'll
take it down.
Low-res render now.
Yeah, we'll take it down to about +40 or something. Okay, so now I'd like to maybe sharpen up the face a little bit, the details on the face. So I'm going to make a new brush, still in the adjustment brush function here, and create a new brush. And I'm going to reset the sliders. You can do that just by clicking on here, reset local corrections. And then I'm going to use sharpness, and I'm just going to brush in a little bit of sharpness. This is all subtle, just around the details that really stick out.
Yeah, look at that.
So, I mean, that's at 100%. But you also got to be careful in Photoshop, because when you shrink your image down, Photoshop will automatically sharpen it. So you have to be very careful with how much sharpening you put on, or you'll end up with a very, very sharp image. So, I'm happy with that. Let's see if there's anything else needs sharpening. I don't think there is. Yeah, we're good. That's all very
Yeah, we're
sharp.
all good.
Loads of detail.
I like the idea of having a little bit of extra focus on the eyes, because that's really where we want the viewer to look. So
Exactly. Now, what I want to do is I want to show you a little trick where you can change up the hair slightly. I'm just going to bring this down to 50% zoom. And I'm going to make a new adjustment brush. I'm going to reset it again.
When you do that, when you create a new brush, then whatever you set will work for those brush strokes, right? And then when you make a new brush, you have a new setting that then works the moment you use those. Gotcha.
And with each brush as well, you have an eraser. So if you make a mistake or you come back later and you think it's a little bit too much on that side, you can erase it out. Now, what I'm going to do is there's some really nice highlights in this hair texture. Around the top, it's almost like she's been to a classy salon and pagan salon and got them.
It's too classy, or not classy enough. We don't know yet.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn up the highlights there and turn up the whites. I'm going to shrink my brush down, and I'm just going to go over these streaks here.
Ah, no way! Look at that.
So it's like the ambient light would catch these,
This is so cool. Seeing just these touches that you could probably spend forever trying to get right in DAZ Studio, it's actually faster to do it this way. If you already know this in the pre-planning stage, you go, hey, this little thing, I could have another light or whatever to emphasize that. And you go, no, just, a little bit of a dodge or burn brush in Photoshop will do the same thing. Or like here, accentuate just a few highlights. And it's really not about making massive changes. It's about literally subtlety and enhancing what's already there.
Yeah, exactly. And if I take that off, you can actually see there is a huge difference.
Look at that. Yeah. But it's not you haven't added anything in really. You've just accentuated some parts that were already there. And now I feel like the top part of her hair blends in better with the bottom part where the lighter streaks here.
Yeah. And I mean, if she was a pagan warrior or a Viking warrior or a barbarian or something, her hair would be maybe pretty rough, and I think that emphasizes it a bit as well. I also have just noticed here that some of the hair is a little bit burnt out here, so I'm going to make a new brush.
Can you go back to old brushes that you've already made?
Yeah, you just click on these.
Oh, that's how it does it.
Yeah, so you click on either
those
one.
Are the brushes. Those look gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm going to do the opposite in this. I'm going to turn down the highlights and turn down the whites, and I'm just going to go over that a little bit, just to get rid of some of the white. Shouldn't have burnt out white in the image. There, that's much better. So, yeah.
Hours of fun. This is also where literally the hours just go, because once you lose yourself in this and you try out something else and you go, maybe this is better, maybe that's better. This is where the hours go in the day. This is exactly. When a render, the 20-minute, 15-minute render time isn't actually the long part. It's when you take it into something like this. And
I'm going to just bring this out of Camera Raw. Just right now, and I'm going to duplicate the layer, and I'm going to go back into Camera Raw and do more adjustments. Obviously, I would do this much quicker if I wasn't talking.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I think we could bring out some of the detail in the clothing.
Okay.
So I'll bring that to about 50%. So let's go back into the adjustment brush and reset it and bring in some shadows. Just make my brush bigger there, and that's a bit too much, so I'm just going to bring it down there. And the same on the skirt. This area of the skirt here where it is actually a bit lighter, the leather.
Oh yeah, we see the detail coming out. Yeah. And it's
See,
also now it's now
the
the
light
worn
would be
look.
shining on it. Yeah,
It's also
yeah,
that worn look, isn't it? That
yeah. I wish I'd have
nice.
fixed this bit in the original render, but never mind. We did it in the other one. So so that's it for the adjustment brush. So let's go to the. I'll show you what we might not use this, but I'll show you what the graduated filter does. I'll just reset it. So you just basically drag it out, and then you got all the same controls, and you can.
Oh, just a gradient. Oh,
Yeah, and you can use the clarity and everything on it. You can make the shadows darker or whatever, and you can do that. You can do that anywhere.
As many as you want. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we're not going to use. Actually, there is one where I will use it. Actually,
Would you ever, just out of interest, like when we start using filters like this, would you consider rendering the background independently from the figure? Like basically render it out twice, once without figure, once with just figure?
I've done that for main promos. I've gone into this thing now where I have two figures in the main promo. I have, because usually a figure like this one doesn't, but usually a figure like this comes with a plain, no decor, normal skin texture, shader, and makeup and lips and things like this. And then you add on all the tattoos and the war paint and everything later. Then I would render them out with a transparent background, both of them individually, and then I would render a big version of the background on its own, and then bring all three elements into Photoshop and composite them in Photoshop. Then that's usually the only time I do it.
Okay.
But I was just darkening this little tree, this close tree here, with the gradient filter there. Okay, so we're going to go into the radial filter, which I showed you earlier. And we're just going to emphasize some of the foliage. So let's bring the exposure down, maybe bring the clarity up a little bit, maybe the blacks down a bit.
What I like about this approach is this, don't try to tackle everything at once with one filter. You know, the foliage needs different treatment than the clothing, and the hair strands at the top need different treatment than the ones at the bottom. So it's
exactly,
nice to see this, actually.
Yeah, exactly. So see, that's nice. Bring out that little bit of detail there.
It's just such a simple trick. It's just, and just draw another circle and just go make that. And
it's much quicker than the burn tool,
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Don't like that one. Yeah, so no, don't like that one either. So you just basically select and press delete and it goes away. So that would be pretty much what I do in Camera Raw. So that I think that would give everybody a good idea of what Camera Raw is about. I mean, I've really skimmed the surface. There's a lot more. You can actually load in LUTs, lookup tables, and different film. I don't know what the word is. I
know what you mean. Like different film types, I suppose.
Like Kodak, whatever, or Fuji,
or
whatever, and whether it was pushed so many stops when it was developed or whatever. You can load in all those things into Camera Raw, and you get some wonderful looking things with it, So I'm just going to okay that.
Linus likes the Fujifilm, for example. Good to know.
Yes, I like Fujifilm myself.
Would you consider? Would you do anything with canvases when you do multiple renders?
Canvases in
Iray for multi-pass.
No,
renders.
I've never used them. Never used them.
We can talk hours about canvases. There's a thing which is awesome. Iray supports it. I think Octane has it exposed. I think in Iray you need to do some trickery in which you can render out a pass that has object IDs. So you have basically a color image that would, on a per object bases would have a different color. So if you were to then mask that using Photoshop, you could isolate that one tree in the background, well, if it was geometry, and then just make that particular tree darker or lighter, it being then pre-masked out and stuff like that. Complex stuff.
Could you do things like make the background black and white and the figure color?
You can certainly render them out. You can put them on separate layers as such. You can say the figure would be one layer, and then you could put the spear on another layer, so that you could do that. I think I'm not sure about the colors. You could certainly separate them out. You can do that, but you can also.
I must look into that. I've never used that.
It's handy stuff. I mean, on one hand, you can do things like depth maps. That's kind of nice. If you not so much with the HDRI, but if you had like 3 objects in your scene, then you'd have a map that comes out that would let you add the depth of field effect afterwards in Photoshop, but be very accurate about it, because Photoshop would know what object is as far away from the camera as another. So it's kind of, there's tons of options that we can look into at one point.
Oh, totally. I look forward to learning so much of it.
Camilla was saying earlier, this is actually quite funky. Camilla was saying earlier that she was asking somebody at DAZ if they think they know 100% of the application. And the answer was from everyone was no, we don't. None of us know 100% about something.
That's amazing. I suppose if you put everybody together, they know 100%.
Collectively, yes.
Yeah, collectively. It's like we were saying earlier, Jay, that everybody uses DAZ Studio differently. Everybody sets it up differently. Everybody uses Photoshop differently. There is so much that goes on in Photoshop. I haven't got a clue what it does.
And ZBrush and Substance Painter and all these things.
Yeah, I've been using Photoshop since Photoshop 1, but I use it for what I need. And if I need something that I don't know, I find out how to do it. And then I've learned something new. That's the same for everybody, I suppose.
And I think that is what brings fun to 3D, because it's this never-ending curve of learning. There's either a new tool that you didn't know existed that could enhance your workflow, or the tool that you've been using for 20 years all of a sudden opens up a new area that you think, I never know this existed. So I think this is
exactly
that's boring. And if you challenge yourself a little bit with every project that you do, I think that's what keeps us so much fun, doesn't it?
Yeah, try to come away from each project with learning at least one thing new. One new thing, that's definitely a good thing. So what we're going to do now, Jay, is I'm going to use Exposure, which is a plugin for Photoshop. It's like Camera Raw on steroids. Now that is, I've got the web page here. Exposure 7 is the latest version. And it's exposure.software. It costs about $149 to buy, $149, and basically it's the same thing as I'm doing. It's turning this image into that image, basically making everything look like what we see in the cinema or in high quality glossy magazines or something, or stock photo or
they don't go ahead and do this painstakingly from scratch. They probably apply somewhat of a filter that gets them there 90%, right? Like for this landscape, it's a great example. I mean, you could do it from scratch, but if you'd have something like a plugin that just goes and then gets you there.
I mean, if I wasn't using Exposure, I would definitely have used that gradient filter in Camera Raw that you just drag out on the top of the sky there to darken the top of the sky in that landscape image, so that's what's probably kind of thing they've done in Exposure. So let's load up Exposure. I have a couple of versions installed here. We'll load up the latest version, and I'll just give you a quick idea of what it's about. I'm going to have to move this fella out of the way. Here. So you've got on your right hand side of the screen all very similar things to Camera Raw. You've got your exposure, your contrast, your color temperature, your shadows, your whites, your blacks, your clarity and vibrance, etc. All those things. You have sharpening, noise reduction, color correction, color correction via tone curves. You can, again, load in lookup tables. And when you think about it, when you watch a movie, they've used lookup tables to give the movie its look.
Yes.
So we do this in photography as well. So why shouldn't we do this in 3D rendering, of still images? We can do all of those things. Vignettes. We got lots of special effects. A lot I don't use.
Look at that.
Yeah, there's kind of old plate film borders and things like that, damaged film. And,
hours of fun.
all those things, grunge and everything. I don't particularly use them, but what I do use, this actual render may not be the best for showing up because it is quite a light render. They have lots of light effects.
Like light leaks. This is what it looks like, isn't it? Light leaks.
It's not just, this section is just light leaks, but we have things like you can add haze and smoke and things. So you see that there?
Yeah. Volumetrics.
Yeah.
Volumetrics.
So I mean, you can, is there one I can use that's darker or more vibrant that I can show you?
Maybe a sun flare. Try a sun flare. That's probably going to show up.
Yeah, a sun flare, yeah.
Or lens flare, something like that. That's definitely going to show up.
See, the problem with this, we're using such a excuse me, a light image. Where's that? There.
Yeah. Look at that.
So I mean, you can rotate that and you can zoom in and out. You can't really see it too well on this image.
But in principle, this is what that can do.
If this was a darker image, having a light beam coming in, if it was coming in through a window or something, that would be very dynamic.
That little subtlety in there, that's just, nice.
I like the haze ones, really. I won't use it on this image, but if I turn that to the side, I grab hold of it. And then you can duplicate the layer. You can add layers.
Oh, it has its own layers. Okay, nice.
Yeah, I think you can. Yeah, you right click and you duplicate the layers. That can make it darker again. See, not darker, but more prominent. So you can build up. How do I get rid of this now?
Cancel and go in again. There's got to be a way to delete them. Or
no, there is. I just right click on it, I guess. Yeah, delete layer.
I wonder,
delete layer.
Is the little blue mark in the front, is that like an on-off switch for that layer?
It is.
There we go, then on-off, gotcha.
Yeah, so you can't delete the base layer. So basically I'll just turn off that light effect there. And you can you can sharpen it, you can blur it, you can make it into an infrared effect, with the glow and the halos.
Oh, nice.
And stuff like that. It's off at the moment. That's why it's not showing. Glow strong. No, it doesn't work too well with this image, Jay, because it's got a lot of glow in it anyway. So let's turn that off. Bokeh, bokeh.
Bokeh. What do you say? You say bokeh? I say bokeh.
Bokeh.
You say bokeh.
I think I would say, yeah.
It's like Boca Raton.
Yeah, the bokeh's nice in it. You get all sorts of different. Why is it not showing? Is the layer turned off?
Yes, we did turn it off.
That's why nothing is showing. Yeah. Where's the bokeh gone? There we go.
There it is.
Okay. Yeah. So, and then you get all sorts of presets for
doesn't love bokeh.
Traditional lenses. So you've got the different kinds of bokeh that different lenses would create. My favorite would be mirror lens, boost highlights. Which, if you have some nice sparkly bits in the image, this really, really does a lot for it. It can be a nice little effect. But anyway, again, you got lens correction as well. But what we're going to go into is, let's reset it. Get rid of that bokeh thing. How do we get rid of the bokeh? Just turn it off.
Yeah, turn it off is a good idea there.
Yeah. And okay, so over on the right-hand side, this for me is the most interesting.
It's the left, actually. Sorry, it's the left.
Sorry, left.
I make that mistake all the time. I'm kind of surprised that I spotted that was the left rather than the right.
Yeah, you have to keep in mind that this is all based around real-world photographic film. So all these settings that we're going to look through now are all basically painstakingly copied from real-world film. You've got all the popular print films, Fuji Pro 16C. I don't know when you can see the difference there. Fuji Pro 16S, Fuji Pro 800. These are just
all
films
the little
themselves.
Different characteristics why people chose that material. Ektar,
exactly.
Look at that, Ektar.
Yeah.
Portra, Portra UC was my favorite. They stopped making it. NC was the neutral one, VC was vibrant color, and then UC was like ultra color. So
and you can adjust the intensity of that on the layer itself. Let's see if we can get a more dynamic one there. Yeah, so you can adjust the intensity. So you can build up layers of different types of film and customize it, and things like that, to your own needs. And you can save these as presets, which is really nice. That's basically, then you've got slide film, which is generally warmer than print film. So
yes, Linus, it is. Exactly. Brian's just posted the link. Yes, it's an acrylic hair.
So my favorite is cross-processing. Now, for those who don't know, so let me reset that again. Cross-processing is where someone in a photographic lab, would process a certain type of film in the wrong processing chemicals. So they would process it, a slide film in print film chemicals. And this is how, before computers, they used to get all the lovely effects in
like
photographs.
The total trippy psychedelic effects. I used to do it myself, actually. I used to shoot medium format on a Holga, and that was just so much fun. And I developed these in my kitchen sink back in London, and that was fun. I experimented with cross-processing, and that was...
I used to have very similar setups myself. Yeah, I used to have a spare bedroom with the window all blacked out and everything.
Look at that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the cross-processing, you can go from all sorts of hard light, different colors come out and stuff. But you have to bear in mind with all of these that these are all on full volume. So, you really need to work them in a little bit into your image. Again, subtlety is what we're looking for.
It's the magic word, yeah.
Now, there's also... Polaroid film is a nice one as well. Polaroid always, it had a much softer look to it. Creamy.
Look at that. Yeah, there we go.
Now if you turn down the intensity on
blown highlights, this is actually very close to what most Polaroid pictures looked like. They just had these very overblown highlights, especially the older cameras. What are they? The SX cameras, the ones that didn't have the flash necessarily, the ones that had terrible metering as well, where you had the face was exposed correctly, but then the rest of the background was completely over or underexposed.
Yeah, you wouldn't know where you are with the lighting.
No.
Yeah, and then you've got faded looks, yellowed looks.
All as a one click. So I think what attracts me is that it's a one click, and you get to, it's a bit like if I have a light set from K1 and I'm thinking, I don't really know where I want to go with this, but I'd like to preview like 5, 6, 7 different things and get a general idea of what might work with this image. So this is kind of cool. You just hover and it gives you, well, this is that. And if you think that's not going to work for this image, fine. But if you find something that you think, oh, actually, there we got something there that we can go, like this one is quite nice. So all of a sudden, the whole mood of the image is very much, it's no longer spring. It's now kind of going into winter, isn't it? So it's
that reminds me of a color infrared photograph where the foliage has become very, it reflects a lot of infrared light and it's shining white. But again, it could be snow. Right. That is called Technicolor 2-strip.
Oh,
so that would be a very old process from old movie days, or the first color movies.
2-strip. So we're talking orthographic rather than.
Yeah.
Right. Fascinating.
And then there's another Technicolor process there. Technicolor with a vignette. Technicolor. I have grain switched off automatically in this because it's on by default, and I don't want grain in my DAZ renders.
You're trying hard to avoid it.
Yeah. That'd be. I don't want any noise, and unless I want it to look like a photograph. You even got Wizard of Oz. Look at that.
Nice.
Yeah, that's actually a really nice one. We won't use it because I'm trying to recreate what I did before, but I really like that.
What's the scratch one? Try the scratch one just below this one. That one. Was it? Yeah, that one. Yeah, look at that. It's got scratches in it.
Now you can change the scratches on that. So you got this texture thing.
Oh,
here.
It's just yes, of course, just a texture.
So you could change the scratches to that or that. You could do anything with it. You put any of these grungy, fundy finishes.
It reminds me, there was a really good offer on Humble Bundle the other day, and I missed it. I didn't buy it, and I think the software was called Lumen. Was it that?
Lumen, I've heard of that.
Same here, I've heard of it, and it reminded me. It wasn't a Photoshop plugin; it was a standalone thing, and it had. It basically was selling similar features here, but yeah, I hadn't heard of it. I hadn't tried it. I haven't tried exposure either. So interesting.
There are quite a few, but I settled on exposure. I can't remember why, but
Kim's using Lumen. That's interesting. Is it? It's very similar. I thought so. I thought these features reminded me.
It's good to hear other people are using things like this.
Oh, as Kanye says, Lumen is going to come back to Humble Bundle. I will keep my eye on it. I will let you know if I see it. Good stuff. Because on Humble Bundle you get these things for $25, and then that's just something you can try it out. And
oh, really? That's
so good. Yeah.
You don't get much for $25. If you can get something good for that, then go for it.
Yes.
So the one I chose to use on this was Kodak 100S. There we go. Okay, so that was the film.
Oh, yeah.
I decided to use on that. Now, that comes with its own problems. We do it before and after. The background is a little bit blown out.
Is that the one that we're using? Is the bluish one?
Yeah.
That's the one.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah. I can.
So we're going to use that, and we're going to go into Camera Raw again, and fix some of the issues.
I see. Hopefully. How interesting. So
I just reset it by accident.
Dang.
Sorry, carry on, Jay. What?
My approach would have been, if you had something like this, luckily you still had your previous layer, I would just go and blend in the previous layer just with a mask, because you still have the version of the fixed background. But of course now, that's a great idea too. You can just go back into Camera Raw after this and then just go fix it with another Camera Raw filter. That's also clever.
Yeah.
Whatever floats your boat. It's like this is again in Photoshop, just like in DAZ 3D or in other applications. There's so many ways of working.
Stop. Sorry, an alarm went off on my phone.
Oh, that means we have to come to an end.
No, it's to tell me to crank the heating up. Yeah, I got to turn the heating up. That's what it wants me to do. Did we get our problem sorted out with people being able to? We did. obviously, as people are asking questions.
We gave the YouTube link, so in case you have issues still on Vimeo, at least there's now a backup YouTube link. But I think since we keep having issues, I think maybe we should just go stream on YouTube as an unlisted, and then make the streams available on Vimeo later going forward. I'll speak to Travis about it. I think that's probably the better solution, because it looks like we can't fix whatever's wrong with Vimeo streaming.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to apply this.
Okay.
And it will apply as a separate layer, which is nice. I mean, you can tell it not to, the software. So we've gone from that to that now. So I'm going to go back into Camera Raw. Before I do that, I just want to have a quick look at the final render, see if we're getting any. We're getting closer to it. I don't know. Can you see that on your screen?
I can, yes.
As to
yes.
Yeah, we're getting closer to it.
We're getting closer, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not going to be exact. So let's go into Camera Raw. And I want to fix this background, so I'm going to go into, first of all, let me see. I like the color temperature. I think really the background is really just what needs fixing.
Yeah, just a little darker, and then we're kind of there.
So let's try a gradient first. That's kind of nice. And just drag that one out on that side. There.
And then you just do it several times until you have what you need. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm just going to lessen that one at the top a little bit. You can adjust all these separately. Now I'm going to go into the radial filter. It's still set up with what I had before with the radial filter, which is a slightly less exposure and a little bit more clarity.
Oh, yes, I remember that, yeah.
So let's see. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
What happens if you try that on the trees on the right? Yeah, like there. Exactly. Yes, yeah. Look at that. You bring in. There we go.
I'm going to lessen that one slightly. Okay, before, after. Let's have a look at the image again now. Okay, we're still missing a little bit of clarity in this. So let's go back into the basic settings. And
clarity is something I have to play around with. It's not something that I've explored yet. So thank you for introducing us all to that.
Yeah, so let's check that now. That's closer. This image is sharper, this final rendered image that I'm showing. But that will happen. There will be extra sharpening when
as you
reduce the size of downsize the image. Yeah. So I don't want to add any sharpening now. I'd rather add sharpening if it was needed on the downsized image. Now, she's a bit warmer. That image is actually warmer. So let's warm it up slightly. Now, I don't like that.
Same here. I was just going to say, actually, I prefer it a bit cooler. That's quite...
Yeah.
I mean, they're basically recreations of one another.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to make it exactly
I could
the same.
actually go in with the adjustment brush, and I could actually just make her warmer, which we won't do. I'll just demonstrate it.
I'll leave the background as it is and just yes, yeah, I see, yeah.
See, maybe too much, but I mean, we're not going to use that, but that's just to demonstrate it. I mean, that most probably looks a little bit closer, yeah, to what she is there. Okay, so let's get rid of that. And I think that's pretty much it on the post-production. Just left really to resize it, which is your basic image resize, and that this render is 3000 by 390. We're going to bring it down to 1000 by 1300. So it's always a good job to have a look around and see the sharpness. So you have these, you can change the resampling. So at the moment I have it on preserve details. If I wanted it to be not as sharp, I could use biocubic smoother. I don't know whether you can see that on the resolution of your screen, but that has lost a lot of the sharpness. Automatic.
It's maybe a little difficult to see on the screen.
Yeah. I'm going to leave it on.
I do know that
it
makes a big difference. I remember doing some thumbnails for Stardew Valley, and the figures were all they're kind of pixelated, and I think I had to up-res them, and depending on what I chose there on the resampling algorithm, they would either come out like complete mush, or they would retain their pixelated edges. So this an important thing to test around and play with before you do the final resizing for your images. So if you are in this situation where you have to resize it, we recommend saving a larger version before the resize, so that you can always go back and do another resize pass, just in case something doesn't come out the way
I'll save that.
Where you want. That old cookie forgot to save.
Yeah, just as an aside, this isn't the latest version of Camera Raw. I haven't upgraded yet, but the latest version of Camera Raw has this. Adobe have really pushed it as this miracle function where you can take a small image that you download off the internet and blow it up to a giant size and actually make it better quality.
Oh.
Yeah, and it's supposed to be incredible. I haven't tried. I've seen it being used on YouTube and everything, but you could actually say, for example, you'd rendered out and post-processed the 1000 by 1300 image, and you wanted to print it out at A3 or something. I don't know what size that is in American, but fairly big,
like 13 by 19 inch, something like that.
Yeah, or even bigger. You could hopefully use that new function in Camera Raw to enlarge it. There's other software that does similar, but apparently the new one in Camera Raw, it beats them all by a lot.
Look at that.
So let's get that resized. Let's see what it looks like at 100%.
Control 0 will make it full frame, or Control 1 will make it 100%, I believe.
Okay. I think she's okay. I would give her a slight bit of selective sharpening.
Oh, okay.
Just on certain areas, maybe on the clothing and on the chest.
Would you consider using a vignette here as well, just to make the background edges just?
I actually think the original image may have had a vignette. We'll
possibly,
do that.
Possibly.
Let me just.
And it is indeed, yes, a good reminder. Thank you, guys. It is 8 minutes past 6, so we're going to have to wrap it up soon.
Okay.
Let's make it another 10 minutes.
There's a little bit of sharpening there on that, and a little bit of sharpening on the skirt leather.
Oh yeah, now it brings out a little bit more of the leather detail there. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's. Just try it on her face. No.
We don't like.
No, we don't like.
Camilla says, can we go and continue on my channel? That's very funny. We can certainly do it again. I mean, we can talk so many post-production tips. There's so many things we can talk about. I'm hoping to expand this series and hope to have more guests on the show going forward.
Do you need me to stop sharing, Jay?
No, it's good. I mean, are we done? Do you need anything?
I was just going to add that vignette.
At the vignette, let me show us how
I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that in exposure.
Ah, you use exposure for that.
Yeah.
Clever.
Okay, so fit. Okay, so we want to get rid. That's still using the same setup we had before.
Oh yeah, so now
reset that, and then go down to where's vignette.
I'm going to go check if we had any questions that we need to.
There's just a little vignette there. I think that. That's
oh,
nice.
Yeah,
that definitely adds something. There's before and after.
See, I don't like it when you can almost see the vignette shape, that you use to add it there. I like the effect, but if
Is that soft enough?
I think it's very soft. It's just it's just emphasizing the character more. I think
it brings the focus into the character.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there we go. So there's the final. Let's have a quick comparison. She's a little bit warmer. Her hair's a little bit bluer, but pretty close.
Very close. I'd say so. Very close.
And if we bring in the original render.
Let's see it before and after. That's a good idea, yeah.
Hang on a sec. Which is this one. Unprocessed.
It's like the cooking show. This is one we've made.
Are they lined up okay, Jay? Can you?
It's okay if you move them both up a little bit to the top of your Photoshop window. Yeah, that's good. That's perfect. Before and after.
Yeah.
Before and after.
After this way around, it's after and before. Yeah, but as you can see, there's 1,000% more dynamics. I hope, anyway. In the final post work.
I mean, literally everything. If you look at the dirt on her face, the texture on her skirt, those are things that I can't even see in the original. They were there, but it's not something that
exactly they're there. Yeah, but iRay hasn't rendered them. Mm-hmm. It hasn't brought them out. Mm-hmm. So there you go. That's my work process.
Look at that. So I mean, this is one of those things we've probably all seen so many of your promo renders and of your characters. There's always something that you can tell, hey, there's more in it than just a render. It's not just the well-lit render. There's something else going on. And it's so nice to see how you put all this together. Really nice.
Yeah, I tend to try, my goal is to always go for a cinematic look. That's the look I like. I love that high density, high contrast, cinematic look. And that's just my thing. I hope everybody in the audience anyway got something out of it that they can take home and use themselves.
Stop sharing your screen, and then we may take a couple of questions.
Okie dokie.
If you have any, if you wanted to ask Colm anything particular, please ask away. I'm kind of looking into the list that my mods have compiled. Thank you so much, Brian and Julia and Nate, for doing that. It's always nice to have you guys working in the background and post links. I really appreciate that. I appreciate everyone for coming round. The email, I believe, didn't go out to everyone, so I'm going to go and make that forum post on which you feel free to ask questions. I'm going to compile this list as well of past live streams until we have a watch page. So currently we don't have one, but there'll be one in the forum, in the Platinum Plus or the DAZ Plus forum section. Hopefully a moderator can pin that for me. So it's kind of at the top.
Great. Well, I really enjoyed it, Jay, and thank you so much for inviting me and also the great chats we've had during the week.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's been great as well, and thank everybody for their patience listening to me ramble on and doing this. I do hope they got something out of it and taking away time from their Saturdays. Some people's Saturday evening, like myself.
True.
Yeah.
We see lots of appreciative comments in the chat. So Yoshi has about 20 of your items, which is great. So that's
Oh, thank you, Yoshi. Yeah, thank you. I much appreciate that. I hope you're obviously enjoying them. I hope you continue to do so.
Yes, Michael. The stream is recorded, and the same link will work. I may change it up because I might cut off the holding loop at the front and the back. Just make a new video out of it. But the links will be on the forum, so you can see past episodes there, including chapter points. Give me another couple of days and I'll put chapter points on this one and the previous stream as well. Yeah. That is it from the both of us. We'll say goodnight, and hopefully we'll see you again in a couple of weeks on the public streams. And this time next month we'll have another DAZ Plus stream. And who knows, maybe there'll be another guest. Maybe I'm going to be on my own. We don't know yet. But we're definitely going to have you back, Colm, for, so many things. We can talk about Terradome. We can talk about Render Studio. We can just talk for hours, couldn't we?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I could talk for hours about lighting. Terradome, I'd have to learn to how to use it again.
But
But
the lighting is a
yeah,
really hot topic for literally everyone. So maybe we're going to have a closer look at a render studio product, or also how to set up a lighting rig from scratch and just talk about
yeah.
lighting in general in DAZ Studio.
My philosophy with lighting is that you can take the best photograph, make the best render in the world, the whole scene setup, but if it's lit badly, it'll never be good.
I agree. I agree.
You know, lighting is most probably the most important thing.
Yes,
You
indeed.
know,
And it's less about, I mean, there's so many details that you could focus on, but I think lighting is something that's just it's just a big mystery to many people. I think that the best advice I could give people is to play around and see what happens when you change certain parameters.
that's what I do. That's basically what I do. I
See
just
until you're,
just turn dials and see what happens. You know,
like my
yeah.
favorite is always to take like I don't use mesh lights much. I like
No,
never
me either.
really. It's spotlights for me, and I change the lighting geometry of it. Point lights and spotlights. Those are my go-to lights, and I set them up. Spotlights in particular, that you point them either at a null object or you point them at the portion of the character where they need to go, and you just move them around, and then you just watch the iray render or even the filament to a certain extent and see what's the effect. And then when you're
Yeah.
happy, that's the position, and when you're not happy, you fiddle around until you are. So that's basically my philosophy.
Another thing you can use as well, I won't go into detail with it, is you can use planes and things like that as reflectors to bounce
Like
light.
bounce, so don't use them
Yeah.
as emitters, use them as bouncers. That's a really good tip. Yes.
Yeah. I use that a lot, especially if you've got dark shadows in the eyes.
This is,
Things like
this
that.
is what people do in, where like here in Miami Beach, there's a lot of fashion shoots that go out. And
Yeah,
because we have this strong sunlight, they don't have portable lights. They just have a massive reflector that just goes
and
and
they shine the
bounces.
light into the reflector. Yeah,
And if we
and they get a
use,
nice soft light from
and they
it.
get a
Yeah,
great soft light, either with the mirror surface or with the golden mirror surface, or just with
yeah,
white. White just bounces
yeah.
off
Well,
it
they'll
perfectly
warm
nice.
it up with the golden surface.
Right.
Yeah.
So we should talk
Yeah.
about that next time. I think that's a great idea.
Definitely. Yeah,
Let's
talk about
do it.
lighting. Yeah,
Let's talk about
definitely.
lighting. My friends, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you,
Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you very soon. Take care.
and have a great Sunday. Bye now.